All right, we will get to our head-to-head in just a moment, but first, you should head to Betano, as the NHL season is heating up, and there's never been a better time to get in on the action. Whether you're looking to hammer an Austin Matthews anytime goal or ride the puck line with the Montreal Canadiens, our partners at Sign Up Expert want to make sure that you're ready to sweat your bets with the best. Sign Up Expert is hooking up our listeners with one of the newest sportsbooks available in Canada, Betano. Betano is home to some of the best odds when it comes to betting on the NHL and offers unique markets, including virtual soccer and basketball. All you have to do to get started is scan that QR code or click the link in the description to register and place that first bet. If you thought the Vancouver Canucks have been the biggest surprise of the season so far, wait until you try Betano, and wait until they play the Flames. Don't walk, run, and check out Betano today. Scan the QR code or hit the link in the description to get started and start sweating your bets with the best. Always remember to bet responsibly and within your means. Viewers must be 19 years and older to sign up for Betano. And with that, very happy to welcome to the stream, which is in part his own, Canuck Clay. Mr. Canuck, how are you today, sir?
Peter, I'm great. Hope you are well. And despite the Canucks result, I'm in a good mood because I get to collab with you on one of these beautiful Game Over head-to-heads. I love it. I love what we're doing this year, and I love the chance to speak to you tonight, brother.
Yeah, these have been fun. I got to do my first one last weekend when the Flames played Ottawa, and then my second one a couple of days ago when the Flames played Montreal. We're getting all of ours just right away here. And the way it's been going, I will take a lot more. It's been fun.
Are you 3-0? Are you 3-0?
No. Oh, am I? No, they lost to Ottawa.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so only had bragging rights over the last two. We'll get into the Canucks side of this, absolutely, because I do think there's a lot of context that is needed when we talk about this particular hockey game with the Canucks. But I do want to start with the team that had the flaming horsehead blasty on the jersey, because I think this one, when we're looking at talking points, I think there's more from the Calgary side. I don't know where that has been all season long. Like that
I was going to ask you. Who are these guys, brother? Who are these guys?
Yeah, I don't know. It's like Hubredeau finally won his game up on Space Mountain against the Monstars, who have given all of their powers back to the Calgary Flames players. Because this was everything we thought this team could be this season. That they were playing with pace, they were playing with speed. Hubredeau was playing it all. This was not something I was anticipating from this Flames team, but I thought first period was pretty even, as you could see on the scoreboard, and then at the start of the second period, the Flames were just like, yeah, we don't feel like losing tonight. That was the most complete Flames performance that I've seen so far this season. What did you make of your team's opposition this evening?
Yeah, when it comes to Calgary, and What's interesting, you look at the standings and you see Vegas and Vancouver and LA at the top, and then you see somehow Calgary's with this group of just ahead of San Jose, Edmonton, Seattle. But the team I saw, and I'm not going to just explain this as a schedule loss or anything. Calgary was the better team in all facets, despite the quick start from Vancouver. I thought Markstrom, maybe we could get in his head. I thought maybe that we could take advantage of the fact. Yeah, and even Hubredeau. I'm glad you started with him, Peter. He was fighting the puck for the first two periods of the game. He was trying weird moves. He was battling, but I know we joked about this. I know the Calgary Flames broadcast mentioned it. The Vancouver broadcast certainly mentioned it. Did all five Calgary Flames scorers today? Was it all five of their third goal of the season?
I want to look this up to be 100% certain, but yes. So yeah, Mackenzie Weegar, third of the year. Dylan Dubé, third of the year. Noah Hannafin, third of the year. Jonathan Hubredeau, third of the year. And then into the empty net, Elias Lindholm with his third goal of the season. It's hilarious that happened. I will say those are some fairly prominent names to only have 3 goals on November 19th or 16th. So it's as funny as it is concerning that's where the Flames are at. But yeah, that is, and I think the biggest one in there is Hubredeau, because it's been a lot of figuring out what's going on with this guy. Do they need to trade for someone to fit in with him? Has he just lost it? Like he has looked, and I don't use this lightly, he's looked broken over the last little stretch. Benched in the third period of a win, a game where they came from behind and won without him. They've been mixing around, trying to figure out what line he fits on, and they put him with Backlund and Coleman, which has been the kind of like break glass in case of emergency. Anyone who has played with those guys has had their best hockey, and then Hubredeau was quiet with them in the Montreal game, so it was a little concerning. But quiet would not be the descriptor tonight, as I thought he played a really, really good game. And it seemed like all four lines for the Flames were rolling. Greer is apparently Henrik Sedin with his playmaking ability on that drop to Uyghur. That was ridiculous. But I think the biggest story here is Jonathan Hubredeau coming up with a big game. And you know, out in Vancouver, that there have been many a star player over the last little bit that have maybe had some speed wobbles. This year, not so much, but over the past couple of years, just having that star player have that sort of a game can be so huge for their confidence, right?
Oh, yeah. And I'm really curious, Peter, as you educate me, I know a lot of your Calgary fans know this already. What is the mood around Hubredeau right now? Is it, oh man, bad season last season, but we are rooting for this guy and we really need him and we want him to do well? Or is it already, oh man, when can we get rid of this guy? Or is it somewhere in between? What's it like in the Calgary fan base right now with him?
It is a little of both. It is bad season last year. Vibes were off. And so we need you to have a good season this year. But could you get there sooner? It's like we feel very, very bad for you. To a point. And that point was certainly coming. I think there is, because there is, even with this performance, there is a wide acceptance that this team needs to blow this thing up and try to start over. And the part of it, though, is Hubredeau was making a lot of money for a very long time. And so I think Flames fans have kind of accepted, the example I use is Dallas, how they have kind of retooled around Ben and Sagan, maybe not being players that are of the caliber of their salary anymore. And then you bring in Henson and Robertson, and now that team's an absolute wagon. But so like it is possible to do that. And it just kind of felt like that's going to be an albatross on their cap friendly page for a while. Let's hope this guy can maybe pull it together. But you heard it tonight. That was in the wrestling world, we call that a pop. That was a road warrior pop tonight for Jonathan Hubredeau on that goal. Like that was a fan base getting behind their guy, and it was great to see.
Yeah. And truly, as a Canucks fan, but very familiar with the Flames, because they're obviously the same division. A lot of Canucks players have gone there and are still there. It's really interesting because you look at the Flames on paper, and their top six looks great. Their top four looks great on D. You have Jacob Markstrom, and you could call Markstrom and Demko almost equivalent, and that's the decision the Canucks had to make 3 years ago. So you look at the Calgary Flames on paper, and everyone was talking about, okay, maybe Vegas and Edmonton should be running for the division, but then it's probably going to be LA, Vancouver, improved, and Calgary, and maybe Seattle, maybe four teams battling for 3, 4, 5, 6. So I was certainly surprised at the poor start, but I know that they've come on in their last little bit, and they certainly were full value tonight. Absolutely. And you got to tell me who this Papasto guy is. This guy, he gets in, he shoves Miller in the net, then he gets in Hughes' face, then he gets rid of DeSmith's stick, all in the span of one game. Is he a rookie? And is he playing to stick, or what's the deal with this guy?
Yeah, he is a rookie. He has had some injury issues over the last little bit, and so he has not been able to flourish into that sweet little flower that you saw out on the ice tonight. But he is as pesty as pests come, and he has found an instant chemistry with Nazem Kadri, who I'm sure brings out the best in him in that sense as well. I think that there is a bit of learning in going on with that. I don't know what the problem was. Like, it's not his fault. DeSmith's stick was just laying on the ice.
Exactly. It's not.
This is 2 games in a row they've done something like that, or 2 and 3. The other night, Zadorov's stick exploded. And instead of like going to get a new one or getting off the bench, he just stood in a guy's way and stopping him from getting the puck. So we're pretty good at just, screwing around a little bit. But no, he's one of the players that I think have provided this Flames team a bit of energy. It was something that was desperately lacking last year under Daryl Sutter. It was rather infamous around here, the lack of playing the kids. And admittedly, Pospisil wasn't available to not be played, but he wouldn't have been played if he was healthy anyway, just given the temperament of the coach and whatnot. But he has given this team some life, and him and Zary have really worked well with Kadri, and that has been something that has really I think jump-started things. But yes, no, you can get very used to being annoyed by Pospisil for a fairly long time. Not a massive I think impact on the game, but the Canucks did have a debut as well, right? Linus Karlsson making his debut. admittedly didn't notice him a ton, which, I mean, from a rookie standpoint, that's not the worst thing in the world. But was there a note or two you had on the Canucks rookie tonight before we move off of this? Who was that guy note?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so he's doing well in Abbotsford on the farm team, and he's in the lineup because I'm not sure if you saw it, Peter. Kuzmenko took a nasty shot to the face yesterday. He was actually in front of the net and in as part of the Canucks lethal power play, and JT Miller caught him up high, and we didn't know if it was his mouth, his chin, not or maybe his chest or his neck. Regardless, he took a heavy shot. Thankfully, it sounds like he's okay, but they kept him in Vancouver for precautionary reasons, and that's why Carlson got into the lineup today on his 24th birthday. And yeah, I didn't expect much. Usually, like with any bottom six, you just hope not to get scored on. So he wasn't noticeable in a bad way. He didn't do too much. He only got 12 minutes of ice time, but I thought he was fine. And I think this is more of an audition, right, Peter? Like if it's something else, if another guy goes down the road and inevitably in a long season, you want to see if this guy can play. And it seemed like he certainly held it. He was okay. He was fine. He was fine.
Yeah. There was nothing egregious or anything like that. But yeah, I think he fit in, if nothing else, at least from my perspective on these. I do want to kind of get the Vancouver side of things now.
Sure.
As I mean, I could gloat all night, but
actually, I'll ask you one thing about Calgary.
Sure.
What I noticed, their 5 of their 6 defensemen all were within 1 minute of ice time. So I don't know this, is your coach really good about keeping those minutes even, or is today an anomaly? Because they all had between 20 and 21 minutes, like all 5 of them. It's crazy.
Yeah, I do think that when things are going well, the top 4 is separated a little bit more. I think part of that is brought in because Tanev needed to go to the locker room twice this game because he got the idea to put his hand in the way of a Brock Besser shot, which 4 out of 5 doctors would not recommend that.
You think you know better. Yeah, they know each other. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, I never played the game. It's something I would avoid. But but yeah, they do tend to space it out a little bit. But Zadorov is absolutely someone who will get up there in ice time a little bit. So it's a little bit more even because of the injury. But yeah, no, that this is a blue line that they're comfortable rolling with those 5 guys, and then DeSimone gets in when he can. On the Vancouver side, it has been a tremendous start to the season, obviously. They flashed up on the Flames broadcast tonight. Vancouver has scored 5 or more goals in 8 of 16 games this season, which is silly. I don't even want to look at how far back we'd have to go for 8 games that the Flames had where they scored 5 goals. But I think it's decades. For Vancouver, though, I know you said you don't want to necessarily use schedule loss. I will for you. And it's not like a Calgary person to make excuses for Vancouver, but backup goalie in, like you said, one of your top, at least top 9. And I think Kuzmenko's played on the top line, right?
Yeah, he's with Petey and Mikheyev, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, so he's not there. And so you have that. Rather emotional game last night, too. Not just with a wild ending and things like that, but the former captain comes back. He's crying. He's scoring. There's a lot going on with that one. If there was ever a scheduled loss, this was it, right? Like, this was... Yeah. I think you could explain this one away pretty easily from a Vancouver perspective.
Yeah, and I want the Calgary viewers to know, yes, I give the team full props for the win. When it comes to Vancouver, it was tricky because it wasn't so much. Well, they did the Eastern road trip with Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, got back on Sunday, and then they played one game, which was Wednesday. So they had 2 days, but then it's just that weird one day, one game away, and then out back to Vancouver. So it's one of those where this Calgary game broke up a 4-game homestand. Having said all that, yes, they are a little bit short. I'm not sure how Calgary's been health wise, but Vancouver. And I'll talk about their great start in a second. They are missing 3 players. They're missing Kuzmenko on the top line. They're missing Pius Suter, who's their 3rd-line center. That's why Bluger played up today. And they're missing Carson Soucy, who is a top 4D on this team. So they're missing 3 of their 18 skaters. So that's fine. Every team goes through injuries. I think what the bigger story in Vancouver, Peter, is it's like everyone, including people in Vancouver, are just waiting for regression, or they're waiting for adversity. They're waiting for something bad to happen. And yeah, they are not going to play at an 800 points percentage pace for the entire season. They're not going to get 140 points for the year, but every team's going to regress. Vegas is going to regress. Boston's going to regress. It's how much you regress. It's how you kind of, diffuse that and go against it. So I have no problem saying Calgary's a better team. Now the Canucks have to come back. They have to rebound, and they have to beat a very inferior Seattle team on Saturday, and then an inferior San Jose team on Monday. And then you do that, you say, okay, then they're back to winning 2 out of every 3 games. So that's what I mean. That's not 800 points percentage, but that is 667, easy math. And so it's naturally the Canucks are going to lose. They're not going to win all 82 games. And so having said that, yeah, it was a frustrating game for sure, but truly full props to Calgary. Full props.
Yeah, the fact that Calgary did those against actual functioning human beings is enough. I don't care what if they played 8 games before. The Flames have not had a night like that in well over a year. So we
so
will
Peter,
take
you
that.
you don't need to suck up to me. You don't need to suck up to anyone, and we're buds this way. But I'm sure you're aware that coming in this game, Pedersen, Miller, and Hughes were tied for the league in scoring in 26. Then they all combined on their first goal, so now they're all up to 27. So it's pretty. I must admit, despite the loss, people in Vancouver are feeling very good about this team. You got those 3: Rick Tocchet, Jack Adams, probably, or at least up there, and then Thatcher Demko. You didn't see tonight, and even DeSmith. I don't know if you knew this, Peter. Coming into this game, he hadn't lost in regulation. He was actually 4-0-1. So he's been a great upgrade over the Delia Martin combo of last season. So they're and generally the Canucks were healthy. So that's all those things, and the offense that you referenced. All those things have led to the great start, but with 3 injuries in their top 18 skaters, now we're going to see how they adapt. And I know we're going to talk about that in the next segment. And I think the Susie injury is pretty scary because it's 6 to 8 weeks. It's not 6 to 8 days. It's 6 to 8 weeks.
Ugh. Yeah, no, we've heard about that out here because we have a couple nice replacements that we think you would love.
Well, it depends what you want for them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, yeah, that's fair enough. Just quickly, we're already at 17 minutes in. Wow. And so my clock management has never been a strength of mine. But for that first goal, I was telling you before we came on the air, like I have been in broadcasting since I was 17 years old, which means I have been doing this now for 17 years as of next week. So it's been a minute. I'm not speechless often, and what the pass goal, and I just let out a oh. That's all I had, and that's going to be clipped forever now.
Yes, the grown man making that noise, exactly.
Yes, no, exactly, yeah, yeah. That was ridiculous, and I gather that that's not necessarily an unfamiliar sight with how that power play has gone so far this year. It feels like everything's clicking now, right? Like you're getting, I don't want to say best case scenario because I mean who knows, but like we're getting the Pedersen that we should be getting. We're getting absolutely the Hughes we are getting. If he's the 59th best player in the league, this is the best the league has ever been ever. And JT Miller is finally the best version of himself. Like it feels like you're getting like maximizing a lot of these players right now.
Yeah, and I will admit I made that noise a couple times tonight too, Peter, in the context of the game, of course. So what happened last year is as soon as Horvat got traded to the Islanders, and then that was coinciding with Rick Tocchet coming in, they wanted to change the power play. The power play was too static. Last year it was Hughes up top, Miller on one side, Petey on the other side, and then some combination of Kuzmenko and Besser down below, switching between bumper and net front. But what they did this year is it's the same 5 guys with Hughes as the quarterback, but then you're starting to see a lot more motion. And yes, admittedly, PD will default to the right side. Miller don't default to the left because they are so good. They both can skate downhill. They both have great one-timers, PD especially. And what you saw was that coming to fruition today is even from the fact that kind of Hughes passed it to Miller. Miller looks like he's going to skate downhill for a shot. And then that quick cross ice pass to PD. We were joking that Markstrom didn't even bother moving. He just stayed on the right side of the net.
Yeah. Yeah. Even if I can get over, I don't want to get hit by that. So we'll let that fly by. Yeah. Like what's really interesting was not a problem there.
Yes. And what's interesting is with Kuzmenko out, so Hronek played on that particular power play. But then later in the game, when Calgary was in control, but remember they took that penalty with about 9 minutes left, and then you thought, oh gosh, if Vancouver can at least score here, then this is going to be an exciting finish. And then for some reason they put Garland out there instead of Hronek, and I bring that up, Peter, because of course Garland misses in the slot, and then he trips the door off, and then boom. The game was essentially over there because the Canucks were taken off of the power play.
Yeah, and then 4-on-4, the Flames had scored once 4-on-4, and they just didn't let Vancouver get into the zone.
Yeah.
And so I thought they did a really good job there. We got over 70 people in the chat. Make sure you're all liking this video, subscribe to the channel as well. I'm loving doing these crossover ones, but I know you've talked about before all the great stuff that's on SDPN. I listen to all the podcasts. It's a great way to keep up with what's going on. I totally forgot that Sens Red Wings game was a noon start Calgary time today. So I got caught up on it with Charlie and Maud during intermissions tonight, actually. So awesome. Real great way to stay up on all the Canadian teams, and there is crazy amounts of talent on SDPN right now. And I'm here too, so check us out there. These two teams I mean, like, these are two teams that are going to be forever linked for a number of different 93, 2004, all the times you guys kicked the hell out of Calgary. These two sides are locked in for forever. But right now, they are locked in trade-wise. Although someone did say here, left-handed penman, a regular in the Calgary chat, saying a couple more games like that and we'll be tricking ourselves into being buyers again. So maybe this all stops. I will note that the talk around Connor Garland wanting a trade certainly calmed down when the Canucks got off to this crazy start. So winning does cure a lot of these things. We don't anticipate Calgary doing a lot of that the rest of the way, though. And so a lot of the rumors right now, Tanev, Zadorov, rather publicly, Hanifin as well, and Elias Lindholm up front. One of the main I guess, people that they could be making deals with are the Vancouver Canucks. As you mentioned, Soucy is out right now with an injury, and it's not going to be quick for him. So, could we interest you in a slightly used Tanev or Zadorov? Well, we'll start with Tanev. How much of how much of an appetite would there be for a Tanev reunion out in Vancouver?
Sure, Peter. Great points. And yes, it's not just coming out of Calgary. Vancouver media are talking about this all the time. And you do wonder if Calgary and Vancouver would ever trade with each other within the division when, especially if Calgary starts to improve and they're actually going to be battling for a playoff spot as well. Fascinating. It's going to be fascinating. With Tanev, this fan base loves him. You bring him on this team, he automatically becomes the second best right shot D-man behind Philip Hronek right now. So, and then you could reunite him with Quinn Hughes. They played 2 seasons together. So good. And then Hronek can anchor his own pairing as well. So there's certainly a lot of love for Tanev out here. However, Zadorov is the left-hander. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe you're right. Yeah.
So technically Zadorov would be the better fit stylistically for replacing Carson Soucy if Soucy is out for, as long as they're saying, 6 to 8 weeks as a lefty. And Rick Tocchet, even though we saw a righty play on the left side tonight in Mark Friedman, he's very, very adverse to playing a lefty on the right and a righty on the left. So it's kind of fascinating. I think Tanev is the more popular choice. I think Zadorov is the more practical choice, but I'm not sure either of them is going to happen. Can you remind me of their contract status, Peter, both of them?
They're both unrestricted free agents at the end of the season.
Gotcha. And making the same-ish?
Around the same. I think Tanev is making a little bit more. But yes, it's both in the between $4 and $5 million area.
Okay.
It is what they are both making. And now that there's been a lot of talk out here that the Flames would have no issues with retaining a bit of salary on all of these expiring contracts. Now you can only do that so many times, and boy, do we have some expirings. But there is a lot of talk that maybe to maximize value, you would do it that way. Just quickly looking, Zadorov is 3.75 and Tanev is 4.5 million.
Okay, thank you.
So I don't know if either of those are crippling, but they're not easy to just slide into a cap situation.
Sure. And whether it's a Garland and it's 4.5 going this way, whether it's, I don't know if you like Anthony Beauvillier, he's kind of visible, so I'm not sure how much he's worth. Or is it simply you trade one of those guys? Often we see like a UFA expiring contract D-man for going for like a 3rd round draft pick sometimes, like that Luke Shen deal kind of thing. To me, that seems a little bit weak return for those guys, but I don't know if Calgary would simply take that. It's better than nothing. I don't know.
Yeah, I think because there does seem to be a bit of a bidding war right now.
Yeah.
With Vancouver, Toronto is in the mix, although we know out here True Living is in on everything always. Arizona sounds like they're interested as well, which I think adds some intrigue to it. So yeah, I think one of the interesting parts of this is we don't know, like everyone out here wants a rebuild. Canucks management has not, although, I mean, also yes, but Flames management hasn't really wanted to go the rebuild route. And so I wonder if I wonder what the return would be, like if it would be a Bavilier type. They did that with Toffoli when they traded him to New Jersey. They, instead of just getting a bunch of picks back, they get Sharon Govich, who had kind of fallen out of favor in New Jersey, but has scored 25 points before, or 25 goals before, and is in his low to mid 20s, And so I wonder if they go like a Beauvillier type and a pick or something along those lines and go for retool instead of rebuild. So I think the direction the Flames want to go and makes this a little bit interesting as well, because we have a new building coming in a couple of years, and that this team has never, ever, 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 ever wanted to do a rebuild.
Now, are there any other big expiring contracts on the team?
Yes.
Whether they're tradable or not. Yeah.
Yeah, Hannafin is expiring as well.
Yep.
You saw what he could do tonight.
Yep.
And Elias Lindholm, also an expiring contract as well. Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, it's great right now. Just really great. And like, the Flames have been burned by this very recently, right? Like Johnny Gaudreau was an expiring contract, and then he was a Columbus Blue Jacket. And Matthew Tkachuk was an expiring contract, albeit an RFA, and then he was a Florida Panther, right? And so Craig Conroy came in and said that situation's not happening again. We're not going to be exposed in that way. And now he has a lot of those types of deals that are up. And there's the talk in the market right now is, what do you do? Because this is a Flames team that, while tonight was phenomenal, yes, they have kind of been stuck in the middle, right? Like last year, they missed out on the playoffs, but they weren't in the lottery because they were the first team out of the playoffs. And they've kind of just been stuck in that area. And even if it goes well this season, you're third in the Pacific Division. Best case scenario, right? So do you want to lock in long term to third in the Pacific Division? And that's been the debate here right now. So I think one of the things that Flames fans are a little worried about, and if tonight is any indication, it might actually happen, that this team will be too good to really blow this thing up, but not so bad that it's like, okay, well, a great draft pick is coming, and they'll be stuck in this middle of, do we re-sign these guys? Do we blow it up? What do we do? And it's just that constant hamster wheel type of a thing, right?
Yeah, and I think some of these, I don't recognize a lot of the names in the chat, which is a good thing. That means they're Game Over Calgary regulars, but they seem very bright. They're saying it's easy to say rebuild, retool, but it takes way longer than you'd expect. And I'd say Vancouver was in the middle of that, Peter. And this year is being kind of catching lightning in a bottle. I don't think they certainly didn't expect. They wanted to contend. They didn't expect to be one of the top, at least by percentage, one of the top 5 teams in the league. So it's funny. And you talk about the same thing about maybe some success will tempt Calgary management to become buyers as opposed to sellers. We're saying the same thing out here. Like, imagine if somehow the Canucks are still contending and they're supposed to be this rebuilding team, and you're still trying to convince Elias Pettersson to sign long-term and all these things. And what happens? I like to think that Alvina and Rutherford have the foresight not to do anything too crazy to chase this year, but maybe this year is going to be the best chance that they're going to have in the next 3 to 4 years. So it's so crazy. And I know we're only in the middle of November. We can wait till the end of February to really analyze what's going to happen at the trade deadline. But I hear what you're saying about the Calgary. It's almost like, on one hand, their window is they closed a little bit, although they were close last year. Yet more performances like this, I could see. If I was a Calgary fan, if I was living in Calgary, I could totally convince myself that this team could do something, honestly, from what I saw tonight.
Yeah, and like you said at the beginning, like, you look at the names on paper, Hubredeau and Kadri and Lindholm and the blue line, Hannafin. I think Uyghur's excellent. Anderson's playing the best hockey of his career right now. And Jacob Markstrom has got Vezina votes before, right? Like, this is a very good goaltender. And so you see, like, if everyone can just play to their hockey DB page, then this team would be quite good. It's just that hasn't necessarily happened so far. And yeah, like, you look out in Vancouver, and not to pump tires or anything, although that's a phrase that might be,
we like it here.
You look at it though, like, you did the part of the rebuild that's supposed to be the hardest, right? Like, you got the core there, I would say. Anyway, looking from afar, like, Pettersson is phenomenal. Brock Besser just only scores goals. You had Bo Horvat there, Quinn Hughes, and Thatcher Demko. Like, you have this foundation, and it's still hasn't really gone perfectly, there's been a lot of ups and downs, and candidly, I would say more downs than ups for this particular group. And so it's like you can get all the stuff you need, but you still have to surround it with not Antoine Roussel and other guys, like you have to surround it with the right pieces. And it's just like one bad contract turns into four, turns it whatever. Like you're just constantly trying to dig yourself out of it. And then you look out in Ottawa, like Stützle and Tkachuk and now Chychrun and Shabbat and Sanderson. But
Norris,
Norris as well. Yeah. But the goalies suck. And so it's like, it's all like, it's really hard to come out of this. That's why Edmonton got like 45 first overall picks. Like this is a really difficult thing to do. So it is and that is the one part of this whole thing. Like the Flames have been stuck in mediocrity for forever. It's my favorite stat. Every Canadian host now needs to hear it. But the Flames won one playoff series when NBC had the national rights in the States. Uno. And that was against you guys. And we don't know if either of those teams were good, even though they both had 100 points.
That was 2015, right?
2015. Yeah, that was the Bieksa-Ferkland series.
Yes.
Yeah. But so like this has been a team that's been stuck for forever. And so I understand just any new direction looks like a plan. But I do caution, it's really hard to dig out of these, like it took Florida forever and 8 different tries. I remember when it was Cogliano and Gagne were going to lead the Oilers out of a rebuild, right? Like it's really hard to be successful out of these things.
That's such a good point, Peter, because yes, at least from Vancouver's standpoint, you have a true superstar at each of the 3 positions. You have Demko and net, you have Hughes on the blue line, and you have Petey as your number 1 center. And up until this year, I would say it's the support. You always had those 3 guys. You always knew they were going to be top of the league, but it was the supporting cast that was really weak. And that's why you end up buying out guys like Ekman Larsson, or as you seriously talked about, you can't wait to Roussel and Sutter and Beagle's contracts expire, all these things. But now, after that top 3, you have a supporting cast. You mentioned Besser, Miller, Hronek, Kuzmenko, all these guys who are bona fide, not superstars, but they're what they should be, above average players, and they are pushing up. And that's why this team has indeed gotten off to the start that they wanted to. But it took, honestly, we mentioned 2015. That's the last time the Canucks were in the true playoffs. They made the bubble playoffs when they expanded the field. But that's it, Peter. That's it.
Wow.
That was the last time we were in the playoffs. So you can tell, as much as you guys have been stuck in the mushy middle, that's why Canucks fans are so excited this year, because we have not truly outright made the playoffs in 8 seasons.
Man, oh man. And that I know the market that I am in and stuff like that, but boy, that when that build, like 2011, I know it didn't end well, but up until game 6, like the atmosphere in that building's incredible. And that, like, Thatcher Demko in the bubble, I can only imagine what he would do with Canucks fans going wild and stuff like that around. Like that would be so much fun. I want to ask about a couple of players before we get to a press conference.
Sure.
If you guys are new, at the end of these shows, we go to the chat, and you guys can ask any questions that you want. We'll answer this one now. Yes, Blasty is the best jersey in the league.
It is good. It is very good.
Everyone else competing for second. Yes, we stole Canuck colors on this one 100%.
Who is Blasty, by the way? Who is he?
So this lovely horsehead here was just he was on the shoulder patch of the Flames jerseys for forever, and they just decided to turn it into a jersey back in 2002, 2001.
Yeah.
And it became a bit of a like cult hero here because it, like, objectively they looked terrible, but it was just it was so much fun that it was just it's a Lego horsehead. We love this thing. That it kind of turned into a thing, and so they went away from it for a while and brought out the classic jerseys that they won the cups in and stuff like that. Yeah. But there was always this groundswell for bring back Blasty, and they would announce a third jersey, and it just looked like the jersey you would get at Walmart when they don't really have the rights for a thing, and it just had Calgary written across. So there was a upcry for Blasty, and now we finally have Blasty again.
Not that we have anything against Walmart jerseys, but I hear what you're saying.
Right? Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes.
I know. And finally, Blasty. Does that refer to like the fire blasting out of his nose? Is it he blasts through walls? What is
it's the fire that is exploding out of his nostrils.
Great.
Is what that refers to. Yeah.
All right.
But yes, there's a couple players on the Canucks that I would like to ask about specifically here. And so apologies if this is retreads for the Vancouver audience, but there's a couple players on this team that interest me. The one we've already brought up, Beauvillier. I always kind of liked him with the Islanders, but he had one shift in the third period where he got a shot and then he poked the puck away and he had another shot. And it was at that moment where I was like, Oh yeah, he's on Vancouver because I hadn't noticed him the rest of the night. What have you noticed from Beauvillier so far this year? And could he be a fine fit for Calgary if they do trade a defenseman there?
When we picked him up last year, he's part of the big Bo Horvat trade. We got three pieces. We got a draft pick, we got prospect Atu Ratu, and we got Anthony Beauvillier. And everyone knew he wasn't Bo Horvat, but we were hoping he'd be a top six staple, someone almost like a Besser type who shoot first mentality, or at least provide some secondary scoring. And he started off well, but then he faded under Rick Tocchet. And this season, he only has 6 points in 17 games. So that's 1 point every three. So what does that average out to? A 25-point player. That's not enough, no. Peter, for a guy making $4.15 million. It's simply not enough. So it's that catch-22, right? Where you say you want to trade a guy like this or a guy like Garland, but at least at the start of the season, both of them weren't doing anything. So then what are you trading and what are you getting for him? At least Garland has built up his trade value a little bit because he's a little bit noticeable. Actually, no, now that I say that, Garland's actually stats are worse than Beauvillier. Garland has 5 and 17 and Beauvillier 6 and 17. So I'm going to start again. Both those guys not doing anything. So I don't know what we're going to get for them. So if you want a guy who maybe can play on your third line and maybe pop maybe 12 goals in the season or 15 goals, yeah, by all means, take them and take the 4.15 that expires at the end of this year and then do something else with it.
The way this team has gone, 12 to 15 goals gets you a statue here. The goals have been difficult to come by. But yeah, and that's tough because, like, all due respect to Beauvillier, he doesn't strike me as the one where, oh, well, his defense counters that off. This is a fellow who needs to be scoring to be earning that. The other one who I want to ask about is Höglander. It felt like he's been a top prospect since like 1997. Like, we've been hearing about this kid for forever. And you see the highlights, he's doing something just crazy every night that he's playing. And now he comes to the NHL, and I don't hear about him as much. Is that just me not paying enough attention to the Canucks, or what have you made of Niels Höglander's Vancouver experience so far?
Well, Peter, it's nice to hear that that you recognize the name and you're interested in him. So he's interesting because it's funny that we talked about Beauvillier and Garland. The one guy who's exactly in the same spot in the standings with at stats is Höglander. He's got 6 in 15. So with him, you don't move this guy. You don't move this guy because he signed for $1.1 million this season and next season. You know very well, Peter, that you need guys to outperform their contracts. That's how you become efficient in this league. That's how you get efficient with the salary cap that hasn't moved in a couple of years. I know it's going to move up a little bit. So if you have him for 1.1 this year and next year, and if he's potting 15 goals, hopefully by the end of the season, that's great. That's great value. And Rick Tocchet, the head coach, really loves him. Höglander was drafted in 2019. Podkolzin was the first draft pick, and he's the one that actually people are more worried about him. Höglander was drafted in the second round, and Höglander's been up and down. He's not waiver exempt anymore, so he's on this team, and he's on this team until something crazy happens. He's the type that can slide into a top line role for small bunches. In fact, I would actually like to see him up there instead of Garland with Kuzmenko's absence. So I think he's always mentioned as the sweetener or a prospect that you have to help get a trade over the hump. But for me, as a longtime Canucks fans, I want to keep this guy because of his contract, because when he's on his game, he's plays with skill. He plays with a bit of not meanness, but he's not afraid to get in there, get in the forecheck, knock guys over. It's his defensive awareness, like so many young guys, Peter. That's the issue, and that's why Tocchet hasn't trusted him with the big minutes. That's why he hasn't been an everyday player. But I'm glad you asked about him. But I think I speak for the Vancouver Canucks fans when I say this is one guy that we are hopeful for. And we do a pretty good job producing good Swedish players here. So I think that's the hope, is that within a couple of years he will truly be a difference maker for this team.
All right, we want him then. That's the one we want. It is now time for the press conference here. As I'm certainly dressed for it. As we go. Also, I realized as you were talking that I was doing like, oh yeah, Blasty right here. When I have him on my hat. I probably could have just, oh yeah, it's right there. but I had to be over exaggerated. I will say, like I said, that the old Blasty jerseys were awful. These are really like they've just made some subtle adjustments with the shoulder pads. I'm not gonna whip my shirt up, but the piping down to the bottom as well. These are an improvement, and I just some subtle changes, but I like them quite a bit. So get your jerseys questions in or anything else. But while you are doing that, make sure you like this video. We have 84 people in the chat right now, so we greatly appreciate that. So yeah, questions whether it's on the game, the long-term outlook of the Flames or the Canucks or mustache tips, anything you want, let us know. This one coming in from Fangirl. For Peter, what do you think caused Markey's bad season in goal last year? For Clay, do you think Demko starts against Seattle on Saturday? Well, we'll go with Clay first on that one.
Yeah, I'll go first because that's an easy yes. I think given it was back-to-back, we played last night. We beat the Islanders in that very highly charged game that Peter, you mentioned. Demko was yesterday. Why make him play after traveling? Although it's only a one province jump. So it would be DeSmith tonight, back to Demko on Saturday. And then you maybe go DeSmith on Monday against a very bad San Jose team. All right. Talk to us about Markey because Canucks fans still like him. We loved him when he was here. And that was, Demko's only as good as he is because he had to push to be as good as Markstrom.
Mm-hmm. That one's an easy answer as well. I have no idea. That was so out of character because the year before he was phenomenal, right? Like he was a Vezina caliber goalie that carried this team to the second round of the playoffs, and then it kind of spiraled, right? Like they had that wild game against the Oilers in Game 1 of the Western Conference semifinal, where I think it was a 5-0 lead that they blew. They ended up getting it back and winning. But yeah, I think it was 5-0, and then they were down 6-5. And I think, while I shudder to give this team any credit, I think the Oilers kind of broke him a little bit. And it was just, he would have some good games, but then he would let in the worst goal at the worst possible time. Like, it is like you took a script of the game. It's like, okay, so where would this be the worst? There! And he would just do it. It was consistent. I was saying on here last year, it felt like you were going into every game down 1-0 because you knew one stupid goal was going in a night. And I think it just kind of mentally snowballed on him a little bit. And I don't think Daryl Sutter's strength is getting guys out of those sorts of mental slumps. To put that as politely as I possibly can. And so I think he just kind of got caught up in the crap that all happened a season ago. So I think it was just it was a lot mental. What we see this season, he's been excellent. The numbers don't do it justice. Like this team has been learning a defensive system. As I've said before, you go from Daryl Sutter to almost anyone else on planet Earth, your defense is going to drop a little bit. Like that's just that's Daryl's strength. So this team had the defensive strategy early on of, I don't know, and Markstrom was phenomenal the whole way. And so now that this team has started to figure it out a little bit defensively, I think you're going to see more and more that Markstrom is more the goalie from a couple of years ago than whatever happened a season ago.
Makes sense.
Someone asked here, Takai number 1, a regular in the Calgary chat, where do you get the Game Over merch? There's actually a link down below in the description of this, and in the description of every podcast that we have and every YouTube video that we have. Just click that link. There's a bunch of it in there. We got stickers. I have them sitting right here. There's also one on my laptop, but that's a bit more difficult to show you right now. And coffee mugs and all of those things. So get those. Coach Rob says hi. Hi.
Hi, Rob.
Carol asking, Peter, are you happy with your new coach? Yes, I am. I'm more happy that he's different than the other coach. But Ryan Huska, I've had the chance to interview him on radio out here a number of times, and kind of chat with him post game a number of times as well. He's a very, very nice human being and has done really well with the farm team, the Wranglers now. Sorry, they've been the Heat and the Flames at various points. I forget which one of those he coached, but it was one of them. He has done a really, really good job with that. So I think he is fine. I think he's brought in some good assistants. Mark Savard helping out with the power play that was putrid a season ago. He has really improved things a little bit. And yeah, it's much better vibes around this team this year. Even with some of the struggles, it's still it still feels a little bit better than last year, at least. Like, no one's blaming the coach for anything that's going on so far.
And what's Huska known for, Peter? Is he an X's O's guy? Is he a player's coach? Is he a hard ass? Is he like what's his reputation?
Players coach would seem to probably be the best descriptor. He's coached a lot of players on this team down in the American Hockey League level, and a lot of them like rave about him and absolutely love him. So he is I think he's pretty good development wise. We've seen that with the young kids coming up. The one thing he does that has bothered me a little bit, that line blender comes out really quickly. And now this hasn't been a team that's shown that you should stick with what's going on a lot this year, but that line blender has come out quick. And for a team that I think needed a bit of continuity at the beginning of the year, I think he had a bit of an itchy trigger finger, because there's only so much a coach can do, right?
Yes.
And when you're on the bench and you're down 4-1 in the third period, I would want to mix things up too. That's just being a human. So I think he needs to be a bit more patient with that, and I think that will come with time.
Great point. If you're a brand new coach and let's say you're not going to change a system within a game, what's the one thing you can do? Well, the one thing you can do is actually switch the guys that play with each other. So yeah, that's a really good point. And I'm sure with any new coach that's going to get more experience, you'll become a tiny bit more patient. You'll start to see different things, and maybe it won't be as much. But I know Rick Tocchet had to blend his lines and around because we simply weren't creating tonight. So it has its time and its place for sure.
Yeah, and it's easier to do that when your team is off to the wicked start that Vancouver is off to. It's like, all right, well, which one of these things that's working should I go around and change? That must be quite nice here. Carol asking, other than Calgary, Peter, what are your thoughts on the other Canadian teams? We'll spread the love, because I feel like I'm talking a lot now.
That's good.
I think like Vancouver, very good. Like I said before, like the high end talent on this team is just silly, and it feels like now there's the right mix around it. So it seems pretty good. Up in Edmonton,
do you worry? Do you care? Like what's your thought about them? They've won a couple.
They're going to figure it out, right? Like I don't think it was a coaching thing. The goaltending isn't going to be this bad this season, although like Campbell's just lost it. Like, I don't know if you've seen his American Hockey League numbers. They're not better. That one, it's been tough to watch, obviously. Like, we make our jokes, but that has to be just like mentally taxing on a guy. But you have the two best players in the world. I think McDavid's hurt. Steve's talked about that a lot on the STP. Like, McDavid is just banged up right now. Now we're not shedding any tears. Oh, only one of your top 3 in the NHL players is healthy. The gall. But I think that they will kind of figure it out. What's your kind of panic level meter for Edmonton?
So the joke around here, Peter, is that we helped fire their coach because we, as you know, we beat them 3 times in the first 3-4 weeks of the season. We won't take credit for that, but no, you cannot count that team out. I'm not sure if they're ever going to make it to the Holy Grail, because you can't outscore your problems, when it gets to the playoffs. But to make the playoffs, I certainly, if McDavid, you're right. I think he's hurt too. But once he wakes up a little bit and he's starting to do so, he's starting to score. Draisaitl, God, that guy's such in a bad mood. I don't know. I just realized it. Like, he's on all these commercials where he looks so fun, and then I see every presser. I see them like cross-checking Bo Horvat's legs. I see him doing stupid stuff against the Canucks. I'm sure you could go on and on. We could do a whole another show about that. But he's still a very good player. So I'm actually fascinated. I'm not just saying this because I'm sitting with you now. I'm fascinated to see Edmonton and Calgary, and here I'm talking like, oh, look at them way down there. No, it's not that at all. I'm fascinated to see which of those two teams, if not both, are fighting for, are making it back to the playoff race by, within the next few weeks. Yeah, that's going to be really interesting to see for sure. For sure.
My wife and I are watching Game of Thrones right now, and you guys are just up there in your castle, just like, oh, look what they're doing down there. Isn't that hilarious? They're trying.
It's a rare feeling, Peter. It's a rare feeling. I'll tell you that.
Just moving west to east, we don't have to talk about Calgary. They're awesome, and everything's great and perfect, and nothing is ever wrong with this team. The Winnipeg Jets, I came into the season thinking Winnipeg was going to fall off, and then I watched a game against them early on. I still like a lot of their players, right? Like, Connor had a great night the other night. Ehlers.
Yes.
If I watched 82 Jets games, Ehlers would break Gretzky's records, because it just, every time I watch, he's excellent.
He's good. Connor's so good. Yeah.
Oh, he's so good. Yeah. More like there's a lot of talent on that team.
And Scheifele, 18 points in 15 games. Like, So there was so much drama about them in the offseason, Peter, as you know, but as soon as they announced those two extensions, and you sit back and say, yeah, these guys actually have a lot of good players and quiet guys like DeMello and Pionk. And I'm just like, I like Mason Appleton. And then of course with Connor Hellebuck, you're never out of a game. So they could stick around and solidify, a third spot or a wild card spot at the very least in the Central, for sure.
And they've had some injury issues. List's favorite player, Hanola, going down with an injury. She's in a lot of these chats, but she's a little busy at a Jonas Brothers concert tonight. If social media is telling me anything, so
fair enough.
Well, I will gladly come in second place to the Jonas Brothers on this night.
I'll take third. That's fine.
As we continue out east, I guess geographically that is Toronto next, which is good. They don't get talked about a lot, so it's nice that we can provide this.
Give him some love.
They're like William Nylander. He could come to the Flames tomorrow, and I would sign him for as long as humanly possible. Like he's excellent. The high end talent on that team is silly good. But again, it's that right mix around them. They have tried to go the sandpaper route this year, and it doesn't seem like it's working. Like it feels like something's off in Toronto right now.
I know that was the game. I'm not sure you saw it. They took 2 instigator penalties against Vancouver. We scored on 2 power play. I say we as if I'm on the team. And then they shut us down. So that was our last loss actually before tonight was against Toronto over the weekend. Unfortunately on Hockey Night in Canada. I still think they're the cream of the crop when it comes to those 3 Ontario or those 3, the 3 Eastern Canada teams. Mm-hmm. And so I expect them to be sniffing around the top of the Atlantic. I know they got a tough division. They always do, but they'll be there. They're just too talented not to, as you mentioned.
Ottawa, well, we just had them a couple of games ago.
Yeah,
they absolutely ran the Flames out of the building. Stützle's awesome. Tkachuk's awesome. That blue line is really good. It's just the goaltending, man. Like if they get saves, this team's going to be great. They had a wild one today, up 4-0, and then needed overtime to beat Detroit. And if you listen to Charlie and Maud, they didn't play very well. So it's that rebuild, right? Like it's finding the consistency with your young players and hoping your goalie can mix in a save.
Yep. And then with Montreal, we knew that they'd be a bottom 5 team, and they're going to get there eventually. But I'm actually surprised that they're flirting with 500. I know I needed them. I wanted them to knock off Vegas tonight, but Vegas ended up winning in the comeback win. But the Montreal teams, that's the one team where I think of the 7 Canadian teams, on paper at least, they should be the weakest. And I do see Ottawa supplanting Montreal as the season goes on. I think Ottawa's much more talented, but Montreal, they're only a couple of years away, but we can see what they're doing. They're slowly building, and I just don't expect them, with all due respect to Andrew and Mark and the guys that cover the Habs, I don't see them sticking even where they are right now by the end of the year.
No, I certainly think that will fall off here. A couple more questions here. Conrad, another Calgary-centered one, sorry. Conrad asking, by the way, shout out Conrad. I saw him. There's a under 15 hockey tournament out at Winsport, and had a good chat catching up with him
Sweet.
Last weekend. So always good seeing Conrad. He asks, LA had a bunch of their management at the Dome tonight. Is Vladar going to be a king, or is there an LA Vancouver trade in the works? That would be interesting if LA and Vancouver made a deal, because those are 2 teams that if they played in the 2-3 matchup out of the Pacific Division, it would not shock me at all. That they not only did they send management, but this is twice now that they have sent their goalie director, or whatever the official title is, Bill Ranford, to Calgary.
Really?
And so now they were watching Markstrom in this one. But I believe there was a Vladar start in there that they got as well. So I do wonder if there is something there, because I don't know if you guys are aware. I don't know why you would be. The Flames have Dustin Wolf in the American Hockey League, who is the next one. He is our delightful 5'11" savior between the pipes for the Flames going forward. But so it does seem like there is a surplus there. And if that's part of the rebuild and you can get anything for Vladar, I like him. I would drive him to the airport if you can get a good pick for him, though.
And I think LA would take a Peter. I'm just looking at LA stats. So Cam Talbot's been great. He's 7-3, 923, 221. But their backup, Phoenix Copley, I wish this was a joke. 792 save percentage.
Oh, man.
458 goals against. I think if you and I played, maybe not, we take both of us in the net, but we at least we cover the whole thing. I think we do better than 792, honestly.
Yeah. Oh, Yeah, I think if you and I stood shoulder to shoulder together, I think we could get 792. I think we could get there. Boy, that feels made up. Like
Yeah.
that's really
But
bad.
Wait, there's the context. So I had no clue, obviously, that LA goalie coaches were scouting in Calgary, but that makes perfect sense. Now, yeah, especially, and I am very aware of Wolf. I've been aware of him for a few years, so maybe that's a no brainer. Again, always fascinating to trade within your division, especially when LA's in a playoff spot and Calgary's aspiring to be there. So that'll be very fascinating to see.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that? I tend to think get the best return you can, especially if you're rebuilding, right? Like if the Flames are going to rebuild, I could care less how well the Canucks and Kings do over the next couple of years. I would like that pick, please. So I tend to get the best return and whatever, like division be damned. Where do you come out on that?
I would agree with you for sure, Peter. It's so rare. It's so rare to see that. And I'm just thinking, even for the Canucks' biggest trading partners have been Florida, Arizona. So it's teams that are not in this division. But yeah, you're right though. If you're not going to use that as the reason not to make the best trade possible, but long way to go. But that'll be something to keep an eye on for sure. I did not know Copley's stats were so
rough.
bad.
Yeah, I would have taken the over. Yeah, that's a rough one there.
Although he hasn't lost in regulation, he's 1-0-2 with those stats.
Man, all that they just give up 10 shots a game. It's like, yeah, we'll be fine. That's all right.
Yeah.
To let you know, on a night where the Flames, I think, had their best game of the season, they beat a red hot Vancouver Canucks team. Everything went well. To Kai number 1 in the chat. Talking about Dustin Wolf. Can't wait for us to destroy that young man's confidence. That is where Flames fans are at right now, and probably where we can leave this one off, unless there was anything in the chat that you noticed that I maybe didn't pick up on.
No, it was great. Yeah, it was awesome meeting a lot of the Calgary fans here. They certainly know their stuff, and just like I think, Peter, I'm noticing this too with the Game Overs head to head. All 7 Canadian cities have wonderful fan bases. They really, really do. And they know their stuff. And all anyone wants is to see their team win and play well and just do the right things. And most fans I've noticed on the Game Over shows, they're really mature. They understand where their team is at in the cycle of where they're at. And maybe the only team right now that's playing outside of their cycle is Vancouver. And it's, I'm not complaining. We're having so much fun on the West Coast.
Yeah, I get sappy about the comment stuff sometimes because having worked for a mainstream radio station out here for 10 years, we had a direct text line where people could just text in their thoughts. And when you have that, people don't text in a whole lot. Man, I totally agree with that. They tend to just think that silently. And so that can get a little bit toxic. And so admittedly, when I came here and we were doing this and, okay, you're going to have a chat, so interact with them. It's like, I'd rather not. But you see like the community that's been built around SDPN. I know that the community you have with your personal YouTube channel, as well as on Game Over Vancouver, it's second to none. And I get excited to do these now rather than, oh boy. So yes, I think it's great.
And we're learning more about the other teams in the country, which was a great thing. Yeah,
yes,
for sure.
Where can people find you, sir?
Thank you, my friend. Yes, I am Canuck Clay, both here on Twitter/X and on YouTube, of course. And as Peter mentioned, I do 5 live streams a week, aside from Game Over stuff. So in about an hour, if you still want to hear some more Canucks talk, I know a lot of Game Over Vancouver people are in here. I'll be live at 11 p.m. tonight. And this was a lot of fun, Peter. Thank you. You're a true pro. You really are. I don't care if you got you're wearing Blasty or if you're making sound effects that sound like more of a 13-year-old teenage girl, but you're doing fine. You're doing great.
Hey, I know my strengths. Yes, I am at Primetime Klein on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I also host a podcast. It's called Couch Potato Diary. I do it 5 times a week. And I've noticed along with Clay's live streams that he also does Canucks Game in 60 for YouTube Shorts, and I will be borrowing that at some point soon. Yes, for Game Overs, next for Calgary is a Saturday date against the New York Islanders. Note the start time. We are a Western team, but we're getting the East time slot. It is a 5 o'clock Mountain Time start for the Flames and the Islanders, which leads perfect into the late game, which is Vancouver against Seattle. There'll be Game Overs for both. Audie has a guest whose name I totally forgot to write down. And for Game Over Vancouver, it will be Kaya. So a lot of great stuff as always. Thank you to all of you in the chat. If you haven't already, like this video, I thought we were great tonight. Subscribe to the channel. There's a lot more great stuff on here. Follow us both all over the place, social media wise. Don't follow us in person. And we will talk to you all later.
Game